My wife showed up to my office with her lover, threw her ring at me, and said, "We're done," only to see my coworkers laughing. What a spineless husband you are. Then I handed my wife an envelope and walked away. Quietly canceled every payment, trip, membership, and pulled out my $90 stake in her company. Minutes later, my phone lit up with 124 missed calls, and someone showed up at my door. Look, I've had some rough Thursdays in my life. The time I spilled coffee on a federal judge, that deposition where my fly was down for 45 minutes. But this was a Thursday that would go down in infamy, like Pearl Harbor, but with more passive-aggressive Slack messages. I'm sitting at my desk at Morrison and Cross LLP, feeling like $1,000,000, or at least the 450 others my suit cost at Nordstrom Rack. I've got my third espresso working through my veins like liquid confidence, and I'm crushing this acquisition contract like it owes me money. The morning sun is doing that thing where it makes the Manhattan skyline look like a screensaver, and honestly, I'm vibing. Then the elevator dings. Not like a normal elevator ding. This was the kind of ding that makes dogs bark 3 states away. The kind of ding that says, "Buckle up, Buttercup, your life is about to become a reality show." The doors slide open and out walks Mara, my wife of 7 years, the woman who promised to love me through sickness and health, and my questionable karaoke choices. She's wearing this dress that's so red it probably needed a permit, and her heels are clicking on the marble floor like a countdown to detonation. But wait, there's more. Because walking beside her, holding her hand like they're in a Nicholas Sparks movie that nobody asked for, is Elliot Graves. Elliot. Freaking Graves. This guy, and I cannot stress this enough, is the human equivalent of a LinkedIn humble brag. You know the type. Just closed another 8-figure deal while running a marathon backwards and saving 3 orphans. Blessed, grateful. Always success mindset. His handshake feels like he's auditioning for a grip strength competition, and he smells like he bathes in cologne that costs more than my car payment. The entire office, and I mean the entire open concept, glass-walled, privacy is a myth workspace, goes silent. Even Karen from accounting, who literally never stops talking about her Pomeranian's Instagram account, shuts up. Mara walks straight up to my desk. No hesitation. No pre-game warm-up. She reaches into her Hermes bag, which, fun fact, I bought her for our anniversary, pulls out her wedding ring, and, I kid you not, tosses it across my desk like she's trying to land it in a solo cup at a frat party. The ring skitters across my quarterly reports, bounces off my stapler, and lands on the floor with this tiny tink sound that might as well have been a gunshot. "We're done," she says. That's it. 2 words. We're done. Like I'm a Netflix subscription she's canceling. Like 7 years of marriage can be summarized in the same amount of syllables it takes to order a Big Mac. The office collectively inhales. I can literally hear Susan from 2 cubicles over whisper gasping into her phone. Someone's Apple Watch probably just sent them a heart rate alert. Elliot's standing there with this smile that makes me want to understand why people commit crimes of passion. He's got his hand on the small of Mara's back, like he's claiming territory, like he's a flag on the freaking moon. And then, my coworker Gary, who still owes me $20 from fantasy football, by the way, stage whispers loud enough for the entire floor to hear. "Man, what a spineless husband." Thanks, Gary. Real solid. Next time you need help with a motion to dismiss, maybe ask Siri. The thing is, I could have screamed. I could have thrown something. I could have gone full Jerry Springer and started a screaming match that would have ended up on TMZ with the headline, "Lawyer loses it, throws stapler at home wrecker." But here's what I learned from 7 years of dealing with Mara's mood swings and passive aggression. Silence is scarier than noise. Calm is more unsettling than chaos. So I smiled. Not a fake smile. Not a "I'm fine, really" smile. I smiled like I knew something they didn't. Like I was holding pocket aces, and they were sitting there with a pair of 3s, talking about how they were going to clean up. I reached into my desk drawer, the locked one, the one where I keep the important stuff, and pulled out a brown envelope. Not fancy, just your standard 9x12 manila situation. But what was inside? That was the good stuff. I stood up, buttoned my jacket, because even in chaos, we maintained standards, and handed it to Mara. "You might want to read this before your next performance review," I said, my voice so even it could have been a yoga instructor's. Her perfectly microbladed eyebrows furrowed. Elliot's smile flickered like a dying light bulb. The office was so quiet I could hear the HVAC system and someone's stomach growling. Mara opened the envelope. I watched her eyes scan the first page, then the second. The color drained from her face like someone pulled a plug. Partnership Dissolution Agreement, Section 12.7. The clause I'd written into our business arrangement 3 years ago when I'd invested in her startup. The clause she'd probably never read because she trusted me. The clause that said if there was ever a breach of fiduciary duty, and yeah, sleeping with your business partner while married definitely counts, I could withdraw my entire investment. All $90 million of it, with interest. Elliot grabbed the papers. His eyes went wide, his tan, probably spray-on, let's be honest, somehow looked less convincing. You can't, this isn't, he sputtered like a broken garbage disposal. Oh, I can? Dude, I said, still smiling. It's all very legal, very binding. You can check with your lawyers. Oh, wait, I'm a lawyer. So let me save you the hourly rate. You're screwed. Mara's mouth opened and closed like a fish that just realized the bowl was actually a frying pan. Liam, you wouldn't I? I tilted my head. You just ended our marriage in my office during business hours with the guy you've apparently been auditioning for my replacement in front of my colleagues while wearing the dress I bought you. So yeah, Mara, I absolutely would. The elevator dinged again. This time it was Sandra, the office manager, holding a box of my personal items. I texted her 5 minutes before Mara showed up because, plot twist, I'd known this was coming. See, here's a fun story. 2 weeks ago, I hired a private investigator. Not because I'm paranoid, but because Mara had started doing this thing where she'd smile at her phone like it was telling her jokes. Where she'd work late but come home smelling like Elliot's stupid cologne. Where she'd stopped asking about my day and started asking about my plans for the future. The PI sent me photos, videos, text messages that would make a romance novelist blush and a therapist rich. So I'd prepared. Because if she wanted drama, I was going to give her a whole Broadway production. I picked up the box from Sandra, nodded at Mara and Elliot, and walked to the elevator. Every eye in the office followed me like I was carrying the Stanley Cup. Just before the doors closed, I turned back. Oh, and Elliot, that investment property you two were planning to buy in the Hamptons? Yeah, I own the mortgage company. Enjoy your weekend. The doors slid shut on their matching expressions of horror. As the elevator descended, I could hear the office explode into conversation. Phones were definitely coming out. This was going to be on the company's Slack within 30 seconds, guaranteed. But me? I was heading home to pour myself a drink, sit in my study and do what I do best, read contracts and ruin people's lives legally. Because Gary was wrong, I wasn't spineless. I was strategic, and that's way more dangerous. The Uber ride home was probably the most expensive therapy session I've ever had, and I didn't even have to talk. Just me, a driver named Hassan who had excellent taste in lo-fi hip-hop, and the Manhattan skyline sliding past like the world's most expensive screensaver. Hassan gave me a look in the rearview mirror, that universal, "You good, bro?" expression, and I just nodded. What was I going to say? Yeah, man. My wife just nuked our marriage in front of my coworkers, but I've got a revenge plan that would make Machiavelli slow clap. That's not really first Uber ride conversation material. When I got to my building, this converted warehouse in Tribeca that costs more per month than most people's kidneys are worth, Marcus the doorman took one look at me and said, "Rough day, Mr. Hayes." You could say that, Marcus. Want me to tell the next 50 people who show up here that you moved to Bali? Make it 100, and you've got a deal. He grinned. Marcus is good people. Last Christmas, I gave him Knicks tickets, and he gave me a bottle of bourbon that probably fell off a truck, but in the best way possible. That's respect. The elevator ride up to the penthouse? Yeah, penthouse. Because apparently I have terrible financial decision-making skills when I'm in love. Felt like ascending into a museum of my mistakes. Every floor that passed was another year of my marriage I'd never get back. The doors opened directly into the apartment because we're fancy like that. And I was immediately assaulted by Mara's entire aesthetic philosophy. The walls were covered in abstract art that looked like someone had sneezed paint onto canvas while having a seizure. $12,000 pieces that were supposed to speak to the soul, but mostly just screamed, "I have more money than sense." There was this one painting, I'm not kidding, that was literally just a red dot on a white canvas, and Mara had spent 15 grand on it because the artist was emerging. The furniture was what I call Instagram industrial, all reclaimed driftwood and concrete, like we were cosplaying as people who lived in a beachside warehouse. Chairs that looked cool, but felt like sitting on a Puritan's idea of fun. A dining table made from a door that Mara swore had history, which was code for had termites before they sealed it. And the candles. Oh God, the candles, everywhere. Like we were preparing for either romance or a seance. I could never tell. They all had names like Coastal Grandmother's Secret and Meditation at Dawn, but mostly smelled like what I imagined disappointment and citrus would smell like if they had a baby. But then, I walked into my study, my sanctuary, my fortress of solitude, my Mara. This is the one room you can't touch space that I'd negotiated like a hostage situation when we moved in. Dark wood, leather chairs that actually supported your spine, bookshelves floor to ceiling, stuffed with legal texts, philosophy books, and a suspicious number of Tom Clancy novels I'm not ashamed of. And in the corner, hidden behind a first edition of Moby Dick that I'd never read but looked impressive as hell, was a wall safe. I poured myself some Glenfiddich, the 18-year, because if you're gonna watch your marriage burn, you might as well do it with good whiskey, 2 fingers, then 4. 'Cause who's counting? Not Mara, that's for damn sure. I opened the safe. Inside was what I called my nuclear option collection. Binders. So many binders. Color-coded, tabbed, and cross-referenced like I was preparing for law school finals and the apocalypse simultaneously. Partnership agreements, investment contracts, equity stakes. Every single financial document related to Mara Enterprises, the boutique consulting firm she'd started 5 years ago with my money, my connections, and apparently my business partner's dick. I pulled out the main binder, red because of course it was red, and flipped to Section 12.7. Let me tell you about Section 12.7. When Mara first started her company, she needed capital. I had just made partner at the firm and had what my accountant called considerable liquid assets, which is rich person speak for, damn, you got money. She pitched me like I was on Shark Tank, PowerPoint and everything. Think of it as investing in us, she'd said, doing that thing where she touched my arm and looked at me like I was the only person in the world who understood her vision. So I invested $90 million over 3 years. I became a silent partner, which was perfect because I hate talking about feelings anyway. But here's the thing about being a lawyer married to an entrepreneur. You know where all the bodies are buried because you helped dig the graves. I didn't just invest and hope for the best, like some trust fund kid playing business. I wrote the contracts. I built in protections, clauses, exit strategies, because I've seen what happens when love and money have a custody battle, and spoiler alert, it's uglier than a gas station sushi situation. Section 12.7, subsection C, paragraph 4. In the event of a material breach of fiduciary duty, moral turpitude, or actions that compromise the integrity of the partnership, the non-breaching party reserves the right to withdraw all invested capital, including accrued interest and proportional equity appreciation, within 30 business days of written notice. In normal person language, if you screw me over, I can take my money and run, and there's nothing you can do about it. And having an affair with your business partner, that definitely qualified as compromising the integrity of the partnership. I'd written this clause at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday after Mara had spent 3 hours explaining her vision, and I'd spent 3 hours wondering if I was being paranoid or practical. Turns out, practical. Very, very practical. My laptop was already open on the desk. I sat down, cracked my knuckles like I was about to hack into the Pentagon, and pulled up our business accounts. The joint checking account, frozen. The spa membership she loved, $400 a month to sit in hot water and pretend to meditate, canceled. Her Amex Black that I was technically liable for, suspended. The automatic payment to her life coach, who I'm 90% sure just told her to manifest abundance and charge $300 an hour, stopped. Every single thing. Then I opened the big one. The partnership portal. The place where all our official business documents lived in the cloud, probably on a server farm in Iowa or something. I pulled up the withdrawal clause form. It was like looking at the nuclear launch codes, except instead of starting World War III, I was just starting World War divorce. There was a mandatory 3-second delay before the form submitted. Some lawyer's idea of a cooling off period like 3 seconds was going to make me reconsider. 3. I thought about Mara's face when she threw the ring. 2. I thought about Elliot's smug smile. 1. I thought about Gary calling me spineless. Click. Done. Somewhere in the digital ether, algorithms were already working. Bank transfers being initiated, asset freezes being implemented, email notifications being generated to lawyers, accountants, and board members who were about to have a very, very interesting Monday. Elliot's Amex was about to meet Jesus, Buddha, and every deity in between, because that card was tied to company accounts that were tied to my investment that was now being withdrawn faster than you can say fiduciary duty. I leaned back in my chair, took a long sip of whiskey, and smiled. Not because I was happy, not because I was proud, but because for the first time in 2 weeks, since I'd gotten those photos from the PI, I felt like I could breathe. Paranoia, it turns out, is just pattern recognition for the romantically inclined. And tonight, paranoia was the best investment I'd ever made. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Lena Cross, Mrs. Hayes' assistant. She's asking to speak with you urgently. I texted back, tell Mrs. Hayes that my office hours are 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. She can schedule an appointment like everyone else. Then I blocked the number, poured myself another drink, and queued up the saddest Spotify playlist I could find. Because if you're going to destroy your wife's company, you might as well do it with a soundtrack. Saturday morning hit different. You know that feeling when you wake up and for about 3 seconds everything's normal? Then reality comes crashing in like the Kool-Aid man through a wall? Yeah, that happened. Except this time, reality was wearing a suit and carrying a briefcase full of consequences. I rolled over and checked my phone. 7:42 a.m., 124 missed calls, 124. My phone had basically become a tiny rectangle of panic. The call log read like a greatest hits of people whose weekends I'd just ruined. Mara, 47 calls. Elliot, 31 calls. Unknown numbers, probably lawyers, 38 calls. My gym, 1 call. Membership payment due, canceled that too. Sorry, Planet Fitness. My mom, 3 calls. She somehow already knew, which means Mara called her, which means this was about to get extremely Italian family complicated. Gary from work, 4 calls. Probably to apologize for the spineless comment, or to ask for gossip, 50-50 odds. The voicemails were even better. I put them on speaker while making coffee because why not start the day with chaos and caffeine? Voicemail number 1. Mara, 11:47 p.m. Friday. Liam, what the hell did you do? My accounts are frozen. Frozen. Do you know what that means? I can't even buy coffee. Coffee, Liam. Call me back right now or I swear to beep. Voicemail number 2. Elliot, 12:03 a.m. Saturday. Hayes, this is completely unprofessional. We need to discuss this like adults. The board is panicking. Investors are calling. You can't just beep. Voicemail number 3. Mara, 12:47, 11 a.m. You're being childish. This is childish. We can work this out. Just call me, please. Oh, now we're at please. Interesting character development. Voicemail number 8. My mom, 2:13 a.m. Leonardo Giancarlo Hayes, your wife called me crying at 2 in the morning. I don't know what happened, but you call me back and explain yourself, young man. Yes, my full name is Leonardo Giancarlo Hayes. My mom had a thing for Da Vinci, and my dad had a thing for making me sound like a Renaissance painter. I go by Liam because I'm not a monster. I deleted all the voicemails without listening to the rest. If it was important, they'd text. And if they texted, I'd ignore those too. Because I'm an emotionally evolved millennial who processes trauma through avoidance and memes. The coffee maker beeped, this fancy Italian espresso machine that cost more than a used Honda, and made coffee that tasted like God's morning routine. I poured myself a double shot and sat down at my laptop. Time to see what kind of financial havoc I'd wreaked. I logged into the partnership portal, and oh boy, the dashboard was lit up like a Christmas tree having an anxiety attack. Account status, withdrawal in progress. Amount, $90,000 interest accrued. $8,347,81 on equity. Adjustment, $12,500. Total withdrawal, 110,000, okay, you 191. Estimated completion, 72 hours, $110 million with an M. The kind of money that makes you understand why people commit crimes and also why they hire therapists. But it got better. The cascade effect had already started: company payroll account, insufficient funds, quarterly tax payment, bounced, office lease payment, declined, Elliot's corporate Amex, maxed and frozen, vendor payments, all failed. Mara Enterprises was basically a Jenga tower, and I'd just pulled out every bottom block simultaneously. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Mr. Hayes, this is Lena Cross, Mrs. Hayes' executive assistant. I'm standing outside your building. I have an urgent message from the board of directors. Please, it's important." I looked at the security camera feed on my laptop. Sure enough, there was a young woman in the lobby, looking like she'd been crying or hadn't slept, or both. She was clutching a manila envelope, like it was a life preserver, and she was drowning in corporate chaos. I felt a tiny bit bad. Lena was innocent in all this. She was just trying to do her job, and her job had suddenly become manage the fallout of a divorce that went nuclear. I texted back, "Give me 5 minutes." I threw on jeans and a Columbia sweatshirt, because if I was going to destroy lives, I was going to do it comfortably, and headed downstairs. Lena looked like she was about 25, maybe 26, fresh out of business school, probably. And she had that "I optimized my LinkedIn profile, and now I'm having a crisis" energy. "Mr. Hayes," she started, her voice shaking slightly. "I'm so sorry to bother you, but—" "It's fine, Lena. Coffee?" I gestured to the building's cafe. I, "Yes, thank you." We sat at a corner table. I ordered her a latte and me another espresso because apparently I was trying to speedrun heart palpitations. She slid the envelope across the table. "This is from the board. They're asking to negotiate terms. They're willing to—" "Willing to what? Give me my money back slower? Apologize for sleeping with my wife?" I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter that basically said, "Please don't destroy us. Here's a payment plan." I pulled out my own envelope from my backpack because, yes, I'd prepared one. Because I'm that guy now. "Give them this," I said, sliding it across the table. Lena looked terrified to touch it, like it might explode. "What is it?" "My terms, non-negotiable. They want to play hardball with lawyers? Fine. But they're playing in my court now, and I wrote the rule book." Inside my envelope, 1, full withdrawal of investment plus interest, $110.8 million or 2. Mara's immediate resignation as CEO. 3, Elliot's removal from the board. 4, public statement acknowledging breach of fiduciary duty. 5, all personal assets acquired during marriage, aka everything, to be audited. 6, and just for fun, a formal apology letter, notarized, admitting fault. Lena read the first page and went pale. "Mr. Hayes, this would bankrupt the company. Should have thought about that before the affair, huh?" I don't know what to say. "Say you'll deliver it. And Lena, this isn't personal. You seem nice. Update your resume. You're gonna need it." She left looking like she'd just witnessed a mob hit, which honestly wasn't far off. I went back upstairs, opened my laptop, and did something truly diabolical. I scheduled automatic social media posts. Nothing identifying, nothing illegal, just thought-provoking. Twitter scheduled for Monday 9 a.m. Interesting how partnerships work until someone forgets what partner means. Instagram scheduled for Monday noon. Sometimes the best investment you can make is knowing when to pull out. We're talking stocks, obviously. LinkedIn scheduled for Monday. 5 p.m. Reminder, always read section 12.7 of your contracts. You never know when you'll need it. Business lessons, due diligence. Petty? Absolutely. Effective? We'd find out. Legal? Technically yes, and technically yes is the best kind of yes. My phone rang. Mara, again. I stared at it, thought about answering, thought about screaming, thought about crying. Instead, I sent it to voicemail and opened my delivery app. If I was going to financially annihilate my ex-wife's company, I was going to need tacos. Good ones, with extra guac, because revenge is a dish best served with adequate carbohydrates. Sunday morning came at me like a hangover I didn't earn. All disorientation and regret, Except I was stone cold sober, and the only thing I regretted was not doing this sooner. My phone had basically become a weapon of mass notification. Every time it buzzed, which was approximately every 45 seconds, I half expected it to just give up and burst into flames like a Samsung Galaxy circa 2016. The count was now at 267 missed calls. 267. That's not communication, that's harassment with a cellular plan. But the voicemails? The voicemails had evolved. We'd gone through the 5 stages of grief. Speed run edition. Stage 1. Denial. Friday night. This is a mistake. You made a mistake. Call me back so we can fix this. Stage 2. Anger. Saturday morning. You bastard! You absolute bastard! How dare you! Stage 3 of bargaining. Saturday afternoon. Okay, listen. We can work something out. What if I give you back the Hamptons house? Would that help? Stage 4. Depression. Saturday night. I can't believe you're doing this after everything we built together. Stage 5, acceptance. Sunday, 3 a.m. Fine. What do you want? I was on my second cup of coffee, this Ethiopian blend that costs $40 a pound because apparently I'm the kind of person who drinks his feelings in expensive beans, when my Apple Watch buzzed. Text from Marcus, doorman. Mr. Hayes, there's a young woman here. Says her name is Lena Cross. Says it's urgent. Want me to tell her you're in Bali? I smiled. Marcus remembered. Me. Nah, send her up. She's cool. Marcus. You sure? She looks stressed. Like student loans and pandemic and taxes all due tomorrow stressed. Me. That's just her vibe now. Send her up. 3 minutes later, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Lena looking like she'd aged 5 years in 48 hours. Her hair was in a messy bun that wasn't the cute Instagram kind. More like the, I've been up for 36 hours managing a corporate apocalypse kind. She was clutching a leather portfolio and a venti Starbucks that was probably her 4th of the morning. Mr. Hayes, I'm so sorry to show up unannounced. Lena, it's fine, come in. You want real coffee? That Starbucks looks like it's been through some trauma. She looked down at her cup like she'd forgotten she was holding it. Yes, thank you. Real coffee sounds amazing. I led her to the kitchen, this open concept situation with marble countertops and appliances that looked like they belonged in a spaceship. Mara had designed it to look minimalist chic, which meant it cost a fortune and had nowhere to put anything. I made Lena a proper espresso while she stood there awkwardly, looking around like she was afraid to touch anything. You can sit, I said, gesturing to the bar stools. I promise the furniture doesn't bite. It's pretentious, but harmless. She let out a tiny laugh, the kind that sounds like relief escaping. Your place is... wow. Yeah, my ex-wife had opinions. Strong ones. See that painting? I pointed to the red dot on white canvas situation. $15,000. It's literally a dot, a single dot. I could have bought a used car, but no, we needed emerging art. Lena snorted into her coffee. Mrs. Hayes has particular taste. That's the nicest way anyone's ever said terrible judgment. Thank you. She smiled, then seemed to remember why she was there. The smile did. Mr. Hayes, I have a message from the board. I figured. That's why you're here on a Sunday looking like you've seen the face of corporate death. She pulled out a thick envelope from her portfolio. Not manila this time. Fancy cream-colored paper with the Mara Enterprises logo embossed on it. Someone had spent money on this presentation, which was ironic considering they were about to run out of money entirely. I opened it. Inside was a letter, professionally formatted, probably drafted by 6 lawyers and approved by a crisis management team. Urgent response to withdrawal notice. Dear Mr. Hayes, the Board of Directors of Mara Enterprises respectfully requests an immediate meeting to discuss the terms of your withdrawal notice, dated November 1st, 2025. We acknowledge the situation has caused considerable distress to all parties involved. However, we believe a mutually beneficial resolution can be reached that addresses your concerns, while preserving the company's viability and the livelihoods of our 200-plus employees. We are prepared to offer the following initial concessions. Immediate removal of Mr. Elliot Graves from all executive positions. A structured payment plan for the withdrawal amount over 24 months. Increased equity stake in future ventures. Public acknowledgement of the contractual obligations. We respectfully request a face-to-face meeting at your earliest convenience. Sincerely, The board of directors, Mara Enterprises. I read it twice. Then I folded it up and set it on the counter. Lena, can I be honest with you? She nodded, looking terrified. This letter is corporate speak for please don't kill us. The payment plan? That's code for we don't actually have your money because we spent it on office renovations and business class flights to conferences in Cabo. The equity stake? Worthless if the company goes under, which it will without my investment. The public acknowledgement? Vague enough to be meaningless. Lena's face confirmed what I already knew. I'm just delivering the message. I know, and I appreciate it. You're good at your job, which is why I'm about to do you a favor. I pulled out my own envelope. Yes, another one, because I'm apparently running a one-man stationery distribution service now. What's this? She asked. This is my counteroffer. It's not pretty, it's not kind, but it's fair, which is more than they deserve. She took the envelope like it was evidence in a murder trial. Should I open it? You can read the summary page. The rest is for the lawyers. She pulled out the first page. Her eyes went wide. Final terms. Non-negotiable, effective immediately. 1. Full investment withdrawal. 147,291 within 72 hours per original contract. 2. Mara Hayes. Resignation as CEO, no severance, no stock options, and Elliot Graves. Removal from board, all stock options voided. Public statement of breach of duty. Company assets audit. Full forensic accounting of all expenditures over past 3 years. 5. Personal assets division. All marital property acquired during marriage, subject to review. 6. Non-compete clause. Mara Hayes and Elliot Graves prohibited from starting competing ventures for 5 years. 7. Public statement. Full disclosure of reason for partnership dissolution. 8. Legal fees, all costs borne by Mara Enterprises. Failure to comply will result in immediate lawsuit for fraud and breach of fiduciary duty, criminal referral for potential embezzlement investigation, public disclosure of all findings to investors and media. You have 48 hours to respond. Lena looked up at me, her face pale. Mr. Hayes, this would destroy them. Yes, the employees will find new jobs. Good ones, hopefully. And Lena, you should start looking too. I'm serious. You're talented, organized, and you showed up on a Sunday to deliver bad news. That's exactly the kind of person who lands on their feet. She bit her lip. Can I ask you something? Shoot, did you love her, Mrs. Hayes? I poured myself another espresso, looked out the window at the Manhattan skyline, thought about 7 years of marriage, of inside jokes and vacation photos, and the way Mara used to steal my hoodies and look adorable doing it. Yeah, I said finally. I did. Right up until I didn't. What changed? She threw her wedding ring at me in my office and called me spineless by proxy. I turned back to Lena. But honestly, it changed before that. It changed when she stopped seeing me as a partner and started seeing me as a bank account with a heartbeat. Lena nodded slowly. I'm sorry this happened to you. Don't be, I'm not. And weirdly, I meant it. The truth is, Lena, I spent 7 years trying to be enough for someone who was never going to be satisfied. I made myself smaller so she could feel bigger. I funded her dreams while putting mine on hold. And you know what the worst part is? I would have kept doing it forever if she hadn't forced my hand. So this is me choosing myself for once. It's not pretty. It's definitely not mature. But it's honest, and that's more than I can say for the last 2 years of my marriage. She stood up, gathering her things. I'll deliver this to the board. Lena, one more thing, she turned. When this all shakes out, and it will shake out, if you need a recommendation letter, call me. You don't deserve to go down with this ship. Her eyes got a little watery. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Liam, call me Liam. Mr. Hayes makes me feel like my dad, and trust me, neither of us wants that energy. She smiled, a real one this time, and left. I watched from the window as she exited the building, got into an Uber, and disappeared into Sunday traffic. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. Unknown. This is Richard Chen, lead counsel for Mara Enterprises. We need to schedule a meeting immediately. I texted back. Me. My office, tomorrow 9 a.m. Bring coffee and a better attitude than your client has. Unknown. This is highly irregular. We typically meet on neutral ground. Me. And I typically don't have my marriage imploded in my workplace, but here we are. 9 a.m., my office, Morrison and Cross, LLP, 47th floor. Don't be late. I blocked the number. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have. I opened Instagram. Mara's latest post was from 2 days ago. A photo of her and Elliot at some charity gala, both of them in formal wear, both of them smiling like they'd invented happiness. The caption read, "Sometimes the best partnerships happen when you least expect them." On Blessed How Our New Beginnings. The comments were interesting at Jessica. "You two are glowing. Power couple alert." At Tech Brody. "Dave, congrats on the success, Mara. You deserve it." Someone anonymous. "Isn't she married?" That last comment had 47 likes. I scrolled through Elliot's feed. Same gala photo. His caption, "Great things happen when you surround yourself with excellence. Hajash entrepreneur life, Shan success mindset." I commented on his post. At Liam. Taze. "Make sure to read your partnership agreements. Section 12.7 is a real page turner." Then I logged off before I could see the fallout. My gym bag was sitting by the door, the gym membership I'd canceled, along with everything else. I looked at it, thought about going for a run, clearing my head, being healthy. Instead, I ordered Thai food, queued up The Big Lebowski on Netflix, and settled in for an evening of pad Thai and existential comedy. Because sometimes the most rebellious thing you can do is absolutely nothing. And tomorrow I was going to walk into that conference room and watch lawyers panic in real time. I couldn't wait. Monday morning, I woke up feeling like Bruce Wayne after a really productive night of vigilante justice. Tired, slightly unhinged, but deeply satisfied with my life choices. I put on my best suit. Not the Nordstrom Rack special from last week. No, this was the Tom Ford I'd bought for my first murder trial. The legal kind, not the literal kind, though honestly the line gets blurry in corporate law. Charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, the kind of suit that says, "I'm about to ruin your entire fiscal quarter and look incredible doing it." Matching it with a burgundy tie because I'm not a psychopath. I have color coordination standards even when committing corporate homicide. I got to Morrison and Cross at 8:30 a.m., which gave me 30 minutes to prep for what was either going to be the most satisfying meeting of my life or a complete disaster that would end with me disbarred and living in my mom's basement eating her disappointment lasagna. 50-50 odds, honestly. My assistant, Patricia, this 65-year-old force of nature who'd been with the firm longer than I'd been alive, took one look at me and said, "You're glowing. Either you're in love or you're about to destroy someone's life." The second one, "Good. I never liked that wife of yours." She had small talk energy that felt like a hostage negotiation. Patricia handed me a coffee. Conference room A is set up. The other party arrived 10 minutes ago. They brought 4 lawyers and what I can only describe as concerned rich person vibes. Perfect. "Liam, honey, whatever you're about to do, Patricia, I love you. But if you're about to tell me to take the high road, I need you to know I'm driving in the ditch now. The high road is back there somewhere, probably at the rest stop where my wife threw her wedding ring at me." She smiled. "I was going to say, record everything and don't sign anything without reading it 3 times. This is why you're my favorite person. I'm your only person since your wife left. Don't get sentimental. Conference room A was our biggest, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, a table that could seat 20, and those fancy Herman Miller chairs that cost more than my first car. The firm used it for major negotiations, high-profile mediations, and apparently my personal revenge tour. Inside, sitting on one side of the table like they were about to negotiate a hostage release, were 1. Richard Chen, lead counsel, mid-50s, gray temples, an expression like he'd been sucking on lemons and legal briefs simultaneously. 2 junior lawyers, names I didn't catch because they had "please don't fire me" energy and weren't making eye contact. Some guy in a suit, probably a crisis management consultant or a board member, honestly didn't care. 4. Elliot Graves, looking like he'd aged 10 years over one weekend, his usually perfect hair showing signs of stress-based neglect. Notably absent, Mara. Interesting. I walked in, set down my briefcase, and smiled. "Gentlemen, thanks for coming. Coffee?" Richard stood up. "Mr. Hayes, thank you for meeting with us on such short notice. Let's skip the pleasantries, Richard. You're here because your client screwed up, and I hold the financial detonator. So let's talk terms." I pulled out a document. Thick, bound, tabbed like a PhD thesis on how to legally annihilate someone. Richard's face went pale. Mr. Hayes, we were hoping for a more amicable discussion. Amicable? I laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. It was the laugh of a man who'd spent 72 hours weaponizing every contract he'd ever written. Your client had an affair with my wife and my investment using my money, and you want amicable? Richard, I don't think we're in amicable territory. We're barely in civil lawsuit territory. We're more in scorched earth territory. Elliot finally spoke. His voice was shaky, trying to maintain that CEO confidence, but failing miserably. Liam, this has gotten out of hand. We can work something out. Oh, now you wanted to work something out? I leaned forward. Where was that energy when you were sleeping with my wife? When you were posting couple photos on Instagram while I was at home, thinking our marriage was just going through a rough patch? We didn't mean for it to happen. Nobody means for anything to happen, Elliot. But it did. And here we are. I opened my document. So let's talk facts. Cold, legal, financial facts. I pulled out a financial summary and slid it across the table. My investment, $90 million over 3 years. Interest accrued at the contractually agreed rate, $8.3 million. Equity appreciation based on the company's valuation, $12.5 million. Total owed, $110, $847, $291. Richard adjusted his glasses. Mr. Hayes, the company doesn't have that kind of liquidity. That's not my problem. That's a you spent my money on office renovations and corporate retreats problem. Section 12.7 is very clear. Withdrawal is due within 72 hours of notice. We're at hour 68. You have 4 hours left. One of the junior lawyers whispered something to Richard. He nodded, then looked at me. We're prepared to offer a structured payment plan, 24 months, quarterly installments. No. 36 months. No. Mr. Hayes, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. I slammed my hand on the table. Not hard, just enough to make everyone jump. You know what's unreasonable? Having your marriage nuked in your workplace. Having your coworkers call you spineless. Having your wife's affair partner sit in business meetings and pretend he's a professional. That's unreasonable. Silence. I took a breath, regrouped, went back to cold, and calculated. Here's what's going to happen. You have 4 options, and I'm going to explain each one using small words so everyone can follow along. I pulled out 4 separate documents, laying them out like playing cards. Option 1, the let's pretend we're civilized plan. You wire me the full $110.8 million within 4 hours. Mara resigns as CEO but keeps her stock options. Elliot steps down from the board but maintains his consulting role. You release a bland statement about restructuring. Everyone moves on. The company probably survives. This option expired 3 days ago when Mara decided to make a scene, but I'm including it for completeness. Richard looked hopeful. I crushed that hope immediately. We're not doing option 1. Option 2, the slightly painful but fair plan. You wire me $50 million immediately. The remaining $60.8 million is paid over 12 months with 8% interest. Mara and Elliot both resign. Full public statement acknowledging breach of fiduciary duty. Forensic audit of all company spending over the past 3 years. If the audit finds embezzlement or fraud, I reserve the right to pursue additional damages. Company probably survives, but limps for a while. Elliot leaned forward. We might be able to. We're not doing option 2 either. Now, option 3, the this is gonna hurt plan. I force immediate liquidation of company assets to recover my investment. Company folds within 30 days. All employees laid off. Mara and Elliot both face breach of contract lawsuits. I pursue criminal investigation for potential fraud. Your legal fees alone will bankrupt you both personally. Company dies, but at least it's quick. The room was silent except for the sound of someone's Apple Watch giving them a heart rate warning. Option 4, the let's get creative plan. Everyone perked up slightly. Hope is a dangerous thing in negotiations. I take full control of the company. Mara and Elliot are immediately removed from all positions. I install new management. I restructure everything. I decide who stays and who goes. The company might survive, might thrive, might still fail, but it'll be my choice, not yours. You get nothing except the privilege of not being sued into oblivion. Oh, and I get to rename the company because Mara Enterprises is going to give me an aneurysm. I leaned back. You have 4 hours to pick an option. And gentlemen, I'm rooting for option 4. I've always wanted to run a consulting firm. Richard looked like he was doing complex math in his head, probably calculating how many billable hours this disaster was going to generate. Mr. Hayes, these terms are non-negotiable. I believe I sent that in writing. Did you not get the memo? It was very clear. Used big fonts and everything. The crisis management guy finally spoke. Mr. Hayes, there are 200 employees who depend on this company. Their families are not my responsibility. They're Mara's responsibility. They're Elliot's responsibility. They're the board's responsibility. I was just the bank. And banks don't keep lending when the borrower commits fraud. It wasn't fraud. Breach of fiduciary duty, misuse of partnership funds, failure to disclose conflicts of interest. Call it whatever makes you sleep at night, but legally, it walks, talks, and quacks like fraud. My phone alarm went off. I'd set it for dramatic effect. That's your 4-hour warning, gentlemen. You now have 3 hours and 59 minutes. I suggest you start making calls. Richard stood up. We need to consult with our client, Shoei. Then consult. My office is down the hall. Patricia will bring you coffee and judgment. And Richard, tell Mara that if she wants to negotiate, she needs to show up herself. I don't do intermediaries for personal matters. They filed out like students who'd just failed a test they didn't study for. Elliot was the last to leave. He paused at the door. Liam, for what it's worth, I am sorry. I looked at him, really looked at him. This guy who'd smiled at me at parties, shaken my hand at business dinners, probably laughed at my jokes while sleeping with my wife. Elliot, the only thing you're sorry about is getting caught. If Mara had been better at hiding it, you'd still be in my office right now, pretending to be my friend. So save your apology. You're going to need it for your bankruptcy attorney. He left. I sat alone in the conference room, looking out at Manhattan. The city stretched out below me, millions of people living their lives, having their own dramas, fighting their own battles. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. Patricia, you're either the bravest person I know or the dumbest. Haven't decided which. Me. Can it be both? Patricia. That's what I'm afraid of. I had 3 hours and 57 minutes before they had to give me an answer. I spent it doing what I do best, researching precedent, drafting contingency plans, and eating a really expensive sandwich from the deli downstairs. Because revenge is important, but so is lunch. You can't run a corporate coup on an empty stomach. The answer came at hour 3, minute 47. Richard Chen walked back into my office looking like he'd aged another decade in the span of an afternoon. Behind him, no junior lawyers this time, no crisis management consultant, just Richard and a leather portfolio that probably contained either my victory or my next legal battle. I didn't stand up. Power move? Maybe. Mostly, I was just committed to finishing my coffee. Mr. Hayes, Richard started, his voice carrying that specific exhaustion that comes from dealing with impossible situations and impossible clients. We've reached a decision. Option 4, I asked, because I could read the defeat in his posture. Option 4. I smiled. Not a nice smile. I just legally annexed someone's company smile. Smart choice. Patricia will send you the transfer documents. You have 24 hours to execute them. Tell Mara she's got till Friday to clear her office. Tell Elliot he's got till Thursday because I'm petty and he knows why. Richard nodded slowly. There's one request. I don't do requests. Mrs. Hayes would like to speak with you, privately. She's willing to come here, to your office, to discuss... No. Mr. Hayes, Richard, I just took her company. I'm not giving her closure too. That's not how this works. I stood up, buttoned my jacket. Tell her we'll communicate through lawyers like civilized divorced people. Tell her I hope Portland treats her better than New York did. Tell her, actually, don't tell her anything. We're done. He left. I sat back down and stared at my computer screen, expecting to feel something, triumph, satisfaction, that rush you get when you win something big. Instead, I felt tired. Really, really tired. The kind of tired that comes from running on spite and caffeine for 72 hours straight. My phone rang. Not Mara this time, not Elliot. Not my mom demanding explanations, Professor Helen Wells. I answered, Professor, if you're calling to tell me I've violated some ethical code of conduct, I need you to know I did everything by the book. A book I wrote, but still. Her laugh came through the speaker, warm, knowing, the laugh of someone who'd seen 1,000 law students go from idealistic to cynical and back again. Liam, I'm not calling about ethics. I'm calling because I saw the news. Local attorney performs corporate takeover after messy divorce. Very tasteful coverage. The New York Post is a bastion of journalistic integrity. And I'm the Queen of England. A pause. How are you, really? I sighed. I don't know. I won. I got everything I wanted. The company, the money, the satisfaction of watching them panic. So why do I feel like I just finished a marathon nobody asked me to run? Because revenge is exhausting, Liam. It's satisfying in the moment, but it's not sustainable. You can't build a life on anger. Watch me. I'm serious. You're one of the smartest lawyers I've ever taught. You could do so much more than just whatever this is. This is justice, Professor. This is scorched earth. There's a difference. She paused again. Come have lunch with me tomorrow. There's someone I want you to meet. I'm not really in a meeting new people phase. Her name is Isabella Torres. She runs a legal aid nonprofit in Brooklyn. They do immigrant rights work, eviction defense, the kind of law you used to care about before you went corporate. Professor, one lunch, Liam. If you hate it, you never have to hear from me again. But if you don't show up, I'm telling your mother about the time you plagiarized that torts assignment sophomore year. That was one paragraph, and I cited it later. Lunch, tomorrow, 1 p.m. I'll text you the address. She hung up before I could argue. Professor Wells was the kind of person who could guilt trip you into being a better human while making you think it was your idea. It's a gift, really. The next day, I found myself in Brooklyn, Williamsburg specifically, in a neighborhood where coffee shops outnumbered churches, and everyone looked like they'd just left a photo shoot for urban millennials who own plants. The address Professor Wells sent me was a building that looked like it had seen better days, possibly during the Clinton administration. Paint peeling, windows that probably violated code, and a sign that read, Torres Legal Collective, Justice Not Charity. I walked up 3 flights of stairs that creaked ominously. At the top, there's a door held together by duct tape in determination. I knocked. Come in. A voice, female, accented, maybe Dominican or Puerto Rican. Hard to tell through the door. I walked into organized chaos. Desks everywhere, stacked with files and papers that looked like they'd been organized using the I'll get to it eventually method. Cheap office chairs from IKEA. Computers that were probably old when Obama was in office. Coffee maker that looked like an archaeological artifact. And people, paralegals, volunteer lawyers, clients, all moving with this purposeful energy that you only see in places where the work actually matters. At the center of it all, Isabella Torres. Mid-30s, dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing jeans and a hoodie that said resist in faded letters. She was on the phone speaking rapid-fire Spanish, gesturing animatedly at a whiteboard covered in case numbers. She saw me, held up a finger, un momento, and wrapped up her call. Sorry about that. Emergency stay of removal. We won, but it was close. She walked over, extended a hand. Isabella Torres, you must be the lawyer who broke the internet last week. Liam Hayes. I prefer creatively interpreted contract law, but sure. She grinned. It was a real grin. Not the polished corporate smile I was used to. Helen said you were smart and insufferable. She was right on both counts. She also said you do good work. We do necessary work. Good is relative. She gestured around. Welcome to the collective. We handle about 500 cases a year with a budget that most law firms spend on office snacks. Coffee? Is it as bad as it looks? Worse, but it's free and it's caffeinated, which is really all you can ask from life. She poured 2 cups from the ancient coffee maker. The coffee was indeed terrible. I drank it anyway because I'm not a monster. So, Isabel said, leaning against the desk, Helen said you just took over your ex-wife's company using a contract clause. That's pretty metal. It was necessary. I'm sure, but now what? What do you mean? I mean, you won. You got your revenge. You're financially set for life, I'm assuming. So what's next? Another corporate merger? More revenge plots? Or are you going to do something that actually matters? I bristled. What I did mattered? To you. It mattered to you. But did it change anything? Did it make anyone's life better? Did it fix a broken system or just redistribute wealth between rich people? Look, I'm not judging. Okay, I'm a little judging. But mostly, I'm curious. Because Helen doesn't send me corporate lawyers unless she thinks they've got potential for redemption. I don't need redemption. Everyone needs redemption, Liam. That's literally the human condition. She pulled out a file folder, opened it. This is Maria, 47 years old, been in the US for 20 years, has 3 kids, all citizens. She's facing deportation because her landlord reported her to IC after she complained about mold in her apartment. We're fighting it, but we're understaffed, underfunded, and running out of time. She pulled out another file. This is James, 73 years old, veteran. Lost his rent-stabilized apartment after his landlord used a legal loophole to evict him. Now he's living in a shelter, and his VA benefits aren't enough to afford anything in the city. Another file. This is the Chen family. Their son got arrested for a crime he didn't commit. They can't afford a good lawyer. The public defender has 200 other cases. He's probably going to take a plea deal for something he didn't do because that's how the system works. She looked at me. These are the cases we handle every single day, with duct tape and coffee and hope. And you know what we need most? Money, resources. Someone who understands corporate law well enough to fight landlords and companies and systems. Why are you telling me this? Because Helen said you used to care. Before you went corporate, before you got rich, she said you wanted to be a public defender, wanted to fight for people who couldn't fight for themselves. That was a long time ago. Was it? Or did you just get distracted by money and a pretty girl who threw your dreams away along with that wedding ring? Damn, she was good. I looked around the office again, really looked at it. Saw the cracks in the walls and the determination in people's faces. Heard phones ringing with emergencies. Saw files stacked with lives hanging in the balance. What would you do with $15 million, I asked. Isabella nearly spit out her coffee. I'm sorry, what? Hypothetically, if someone gave you $15 million for this place, what would you do with it? She stared at me. Is this a hypothetical, or are you actually asking? I'm asking. She set down her coffee, thought for a moment. I'd hire 20 more lawyers, good ones. I'd upgrade our tech so we're not running on computers from the Bush administration. I'd open satellite offices in Queens and the Bronx. I'd start a bail fund. I'd create a fellowship program for law students who want to do this work but can't afford to. She stopped, looked at me. Why are you asking? I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and started filling out a wire transfer form. Because I just took over a company, and I have no idea what to do with it. Because I've spent the last week destroying things, and I'm tired of destruction. Because Professor Wells guilt-tripped me, and she's usually right about these things. I hit submit. 15 million gone, just like that. Isabella's phone buzzed. She looked at it. Her eyes went wide. Liam, did you just... Is this real? It's real. Use it wisely. Don't spend it all on coffee, even though yours desperately needs an upgrade. And Isabella, yeah, I want to help. Not just with money. I want to actually do the work. Pro bono, obviously. I need to remember what it feels like to win something that actually matters. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she smiled. A real, genuine smile that made me feel like maybe I wasn't completely dead inside. Welcome to the collective, Liam. Fair warning, the hours are terrible. The pay is non-existent. And you're going to see things that will keep you up at night. Sounds perfect. Also, you're doing intake interviews today because Martinez called in sick and we're drowning. What? You wanted to help. Here's a clipboard and a list of questions. Room 3. Your first client is waiting. Try not to terrify them with your corporate lawyer energy. She handed me a literal clipboard, like it was 1987 and we'd never heard of iPads, and pushed me toward a door marked Interview Room 3. Inside was a woman who looked about my mom's age, wearing a cleaning company uniform, holding a crumpled tissue and a manila envelope that probably contained her entire legal life. I sat down, looked at the clipboard, looked at her. Hi, I'm Liam. I'm going to help you today. Can you tell me what's going on? And for the first time in a week, I felt like I was doing something that mattered. Not revenge, not destruction, not corporate warfare, just helping. It felt weird, but also kind of good. By Thursday morning, I'd interviewed 12 people, filed 4 emergency motions, and consumed enough terrible coffee to violate several health codes. I'd also slept exactly 4 hours, but weirdly, I felt more awake than I had in years. Turns out spite-fueled revenge gives you energy, but purpose-driven work gives you something better. A reason to get out of bed that isn't, how can I destroy someone today? I was in the middle of drafting an eviction defense motion, sitting at a desk held together by hope and expired warranty stickers, when my phone started blowing up. Not calls this time, notifications, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, even Facebook, which I'd forgotten I had. I opened Twitter first because I'm a millennial, and that's where we go to watch the world burn. My notifications were at 12,000 plus, 12,000. The top tweet, Sarah, legal. This lawyer found out his wife was cheating, so he used a contract clause to take her company, then donated $15 to legal aid. I'm not saying he's Batman, but has anyone seen them in the same room? Child lawyer goals, not petty philanthropy. 14,000 retweets, 47,000 likes. The replies were chaos. Tech Bro 147. Imagine cheating on someone and they respond with a hostile takeover and charity. That's not revenge, that's evolution. At Corporate Law 101. I just taught this case to my contracts class. We're calling it Hayes v. Consequences. At random Twitter user. Mara threw the ring. He threw the entire economy. Then he threw money at charity. This man is playing 4D chess while we're all playing checkers. Skepticals. Sally. Cool story, but is anyone going to mention that he's still a rich guy playing games with other rich people's money? Fair point, Sally, but let me have this. I scrolled down and someone had made a meme, a screenshot of me, from where I don't even know, with the text, chaotic good lawyer alignment. Another meme, Drake format. Crying about divorce, and Drake disapproving. Corporate takeover plus philanthropy, Drake approving. Instagram was even worse, better. Someone had created an account called @PettyPhilanthropist with my face on it. They'd already posted 3 times. Post 1, when your ex throws away your relationship so you throw away their company. Petty philanthropy. Post 2, revenge is a dish best served with a 501c3 tax deduction. Pona 3, they said money can't buy happiness. They were right, but it can buy justice. And that's better. 8,000 followers already. I wasn't even running the account. LinkedIn, professional, boring LinkedIn, had transformed into a philosophy debate about business ethics, revenge, and whether I was a hero or a villain. Jennifer Martinez, MBA. Hayes demonstrates that contractual literacy is the ultimate form of protection. This should be required reading in B school. David Patterson, CEO. This is why you read contracts before signing them, and why you don't mix business with pleasure or affairs. Susan Rodriguez, attorney. As satisfying as this is to watch, we should remember that 200 employees nearly lost their jobs because of personal drama. That's not heroic. Also fair, Susan. But the employees didn't lose their jobs because I'm not actually a villain, just someone with excellent lawyers and spite management skills. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered anyway because I'm apparently a glutton for chaos. Liam Hayes? Speaking. This is Marcus Williams from The Atlantic. I'm writing a piece about your story, The Revenge Takeover, When Divorce Meets Corporate Law. Would you be available for an interview? No. It would be very sympathetic to your perspective. Still no. We'd fact-check everything, ensure accuracy. I appreciate the offer, but my answer is no. You can quote me on that. No. I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Different number. Is this Liam Hayes, the lawyer from the Mar Enterprises situation? Who's asking? Sheila Grant from Netflix. We're interested in developing your story for a limited series. Succession meets Marriage Story. We think there's real potential. You want to make my divorce into a TV show? Not just your divorce. The corporate intrigue, the legal maneuvering, the philanthropy angle. It's got everything. Love, betrayal, redemption. It's got a hard pass, that's what it's got. Mr. Hayes, we'd compensate you generously. I just gave away $15 million. You think I need your money? Make a documentary about Isabella Torres instead. She's actually interesting. I hung up again. Isabella walked over, holding her phone, grinning like she'd just won the lottery. You're trending. I know, make it stop. Can't stop the internet, Liam. You're a meme now. There's no coming back from that. She showed me her screen. Look, someone made a TikTok reenacting your office confrontation. It has 2 million views. I watched a 20-something kid in a suit dramatically yelling, Section 12.7, while another kid in a red dress threw a plastic ring at him. I hate everything about this. Really? Because I think it's hilarious. Also, our donation page has crashed 3 times today. We've gotten another $200,000 in donations from people who saw the story and wanted to contribute. You've accidentally started a movement. What movement? Petty philanthropy. People are calling it revenge charity. Do something good to spite someone bad. It's like rage cleaning, but for society. My phone buzzed again. A text from Professor Wells. Professor Wells. You made the news, the actual news, not just social media. The Times wants to interview you about business ethics and contract law. I told them you'd do it. Me. You did what? Professor Wells. You're teaching my seminar next week. Contract law and fiduciary duty. The students are already calling it How to Legally Destroy Your Enemies 101. Me. I never agreed to this. Professor Wells. You plagiarized in torts. I still have the evidence. Tuesday, 2 p.m. Wear something professorial. Also, proud of you. The charity thing was good. You're becoming less terrible. Me. That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. Professor Wells. Don't let it go to your head. I looked up at Isabella. Apparently, I'm teaching law school now. Good. Maybe you can train the next generation of petty philanthropists. We could use more lawyers who know how to weaponize contracts for good. Is that really what I'm doing? Using weapons for good? She sat down on the edge of the desk. Look, was your initial motivation revenge? Yeah, obviously. But you turned it into something else. You took your pain and your anger and your legal knowledge, and you created an opportunity to help people. That's not nothing. It feels weird being called a hero for destroying someone's company. You're not a hero for destroying the company. You're a human being who got hurt and responded in a very human way. But then, and this is the important part, you chose to do something constructive with the aftermath. That's growth. That's learning. That's being an adult, which, let's be honest, most adults still haven't figured out. My phone buzzed. Another text. This time from a number I didn't recognize, but somehow knew exactly who it was, unknown. I saw the news, the donation, the legal aid work. You're doing good things. I'm glad. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you find peace. M. Mara. I stared at the text for a long time, Isabella noticed. Someone important? Someone who used to be. You going to respond? I thought about it. Thought about all the things I could say. The anger I could unleash. The forgiveness I could offer. The closure we both probably needed. Instead, I deleted the text and blocked the number. No, I said everything I needed to say in section 12.7. Isabel nodded. That's very emotionally unhealthy, but also very on brand for you. I contain multitudes. You contain issues, but you're working on them. That's what matters. My laptop dinged. An email from Richard Chen. Subject, transfer complete. Mr. Hayes, all documents have been executed. You are now the controlling partner of what was formerly Mara Enterprises. Mrs. Hayes and Mr. Graves have vacated the premises. The board has been notified of the change in leadership. As per your instructions, we've prepared the paperwork for the company restructuring and the name change. Please confirm the new name at your earliest convenience. The legal fees for this matter total $487,000. Invoice attached. Sincerely, Richard Chen, escrowing. I opened the name change document. There was a blank line where the new company name would go. I'd been thinking about this all week. What do you name a company you acquired through divorce and spite? Isabella looked over my shoulder. You need a name? Yeah, any ideas? She thought for a moment. What do you want it to represent? I don't know. Something that's not about me. Not about Mara. Something that actually means something. What does the company do? Like, actually do? I pulled up their website. Boutique consulting for nonprofits and social enterprises. Strategy, fundraising, operations. Actually pretty good work when they weren't busy having affairs. Isabella's eyes lit up. Keep it. Keep what it does. But make it about the mission, not the ego. I typed, Forward Collective Consulting. Forward, as in moving forward, collective, because nothing worth doing happens alone. Isabella smiled. I like it. I've grown as a person, but I'm still petty enough to erase my ex-wife's name from everything. That's exactly the vibe I was going for. I sent the name to Richard, paid the invoice, ouch, and closed my laptop. So, Isabella said, you're a business owner now, and a pro bono lawyer, and apparently a meme. How does it feel? Exhausting, weird. Kinda good? I looked around the office. I spent 7 years building a life with someone who didn't want it. Now I'm building, I don't know what this is, but it feels real. It is real and messy and complicated. Welcome to actual human existence. My phone buzzed one more time. Twitter notification. At Petty Philanthropist. New life motto. Be petty. Be charitable. Be legally sound. In that order. 7,000 likes in 10 minutes. I showed Isabella. She laughed so hard she snorted coffee. You know what the best part about this is? She said. What? Somewhere right now, your ex-wife is watching you become a better person and a meme simultaneously. And there's nothing she can do about it, except learn to live with the consequences of her choices. That is pretty satisfying. Also, you're teaching intake interviews tomorrow at 9 a.m. because Martinez is still sick and we're drowning again. What? Welcome to nonprofit work, Liam. The chaos never stops, but at least the coffee is... No, actually, the coffee is still terrible. But we have good people. That's something. I looked at my notifications, still exploding, and then at the intake files stacked on the desk. Real people, real problems, real opportunities to actually help. You know what? I'll take terrible coffee and good people over excellent coffee and terrible people any day. Look at you, learning and growing. Professor Wells would be proud. Professor Wells is making me teach law school while blackmailing me with decade-old plagiarism allegations. That tracks. She's good people too, in her own terrifying way. I grabbed the intake files and a cup of terrible coffee. Somewhere in Manhattan, my ex-wife was dealing with the consequences of her choices. Somewhere in the internet, people were turning my life into memes. Somewhere in Brooklyn, I was about to interview a client and maybe, just maybe, do some actual good. Life was weird, but for the first time in a long time, it was my weird, and that was enough. Tuesday afternoon, I found myself back at Columbia Law School, walking halls I hadn't walked in 12 years, past classrooms where I'd learned to argue like a lawyer and think like a mercenary. The building smelled exactly the same. Old books, fresh coffee, and the faint panic of law students realizing they hadn't read for class. It was nostalgic and horrifying simultaneously. Professor Wells's office was on the 4th floor, same as it had been when I was a student. The door was open. I knocked anyway because I have manners, despite what the internet suggests. Come in, Liam. She was sitting behind her desk, this massive oak thing that probably had its own historical designation, surrounded by books, papers, and what looked like evidence that she'd been grading papers with the energy of someone personally offended by poor legal reasoning. Professor, sit! We need to talk before you face the wolves. The wolves being 50 law students who've been following your story like it's a reality show. Half of them think you're a genius. The other half think you're a cautionary tale. All of them want to know how you did it. I sat. And what do you think? She took off her reading glasses and studied me. I think you're a brilliant lawyer who had a terrible week and responded in the most legally sound, ethically questionable, emotionally complicated way possible. I think you're hurt and angry and trying to pretend you're not by doing good works. I think you're working through trauma by helping others, which is healthier than most coping mechanisms, but still avoidance. And I think you're here because you need to remember why you went to law school in the first place. Wow. Did you prepare that speech, or is this your natural setting? I've known you for 12 years, Liam. I wrote you a recommendation letter for your first job. I went to your wedding and thought, this will end badly. I'm not here to blow smoke. I'm here to make sure you don't implode. I'm not imploding. You donated $15 million and took over your ex-wife's company in the same week. That's either the most stable thing you've ever done or a complete breakdown disguised as success. I'm betting on the latter. She wasn't wrong, but I wasn't going to admit that. What do you want me to tell these students? The truth. Tell them what you did, why you did it, what you learned, and most importantly, what you'd do differently. She stood up. But first, there's someone I want you to meet properly. She led me down the hall to a conference room. Inside, a woman was setting up a presentation, mid-40s, wearing a blazer that had seen better days, eyes that suggested she'd been dealing with university bureaucracy and winning. Liam, this is Dr. Camille Rhodes. She teaches ethics and professional responsibility, which I'm sure you remember fondly from your time here. I did not remember it fondly. I'd nearly failed that class because I'd written a paper arguing that corporate lawyers had no ethical obligations beyond their clients, which Dr. Rhodes had called intellectually lazy and morally bankrupt. She'd been right, but I'd been 24 and arrogant. Mr. Hayes, she said, extending her hand, I've been following your case with great interest. As a cautionary tale, as a masterclass in contract law weaponization, your use of Section 12.7 was textbook, literally. I'm rewriting my curriculum to include it. You're teaching students how to divorce nuke their spouses? I'm teaching students that contracts are tools. They can be used for protection, for justice, or for revenge. The difference isn't in the tool. It's in the intent and the outcome. She pulled up a slide presentation titled Hayes v. Hayes, a case study in fiduciary duty and personal consequences. You made a PowerPoint about my divorce? I made a PowerPoint about the legal framework you used. The divorce is context. Messy, public, meme-worthy context, but still context. Professor Wells smiled. Camille wants to study what you did, not judge it, study it. The legal mechanisms, the ethical implications, the precedent it sets. And I want you to guest lecture, Dr. Rhodes added. Not just for my class, for anyone interested in the intersection of corporate law and personal relationships. We're calling it When Business Gets Personal, Legal Frameworks for Impossible Situations. That's a terrible title. The students are calling it Revenge Law 101. Yours is only marginally better. Fair. Why would I do this? Dr. Rhodes closed her laptop and looked at me directly. Because you're sitting on one of the most interesting legal cases of the decade, and you have a choice. Let it be reduced to memes and tabloid coverage, or use it to actually teach people something valuable. Like what? How to destroy your enemies legally?